everybody. Welcome to the Everyone CEO series, of which this one is the first presentation everyone head of by Don Weltens. Let me start off with telling you who Don Weltens is. Well, who am I? I am the most average person on the planet. When I was young and I went to school, math, it wasn't my specialty at all. Languages, either. They were not my specialty. If we were doing sports and we had to run for a few miles, well, I got passed by everyone, including all the girls. So I am very, very average. What I definitely am not, I'm not a guru which has all the knowledge in the world. I would like to have it, but I don't. I'm sorry. Secondly, I don't have any talents, any specific talents. I just don't have them. Lastly, what am I definitely? I am drop dead gorgeous. Of course, you cannot see it, in real life, but I just am. Believe me, I am. Unfortunately, I didn't have the talent to do something with my exterior. So here I am, just giving the presentation. What is this series about? Well, first of all, I want to give you a guide for personal happiness. I might hear you guys think, well, such guides already exist. People have written thousands of them. And of course you are right, that is true. But most of those guides focus on adjusting or adapting your circumstances at home or at work, for example, job crafting, to enhance your life and your happiness. So you change your circumstance so that you become happy. Which is good. That is very good. I don't want to argue with that because it's good. But there's a problem with that. What if it's just not possible to change the circumstances? What if it's just not possible? What if you don't have the money or the means, or what if you have a job that you just cannot craft? Are we then doomed to be unhappy? Well, I think we're not. Hence the second point, I want to teach you how you can be happy when things are not perfect. The third important thing is wisdom. I want to learn you how to apply wisdom instead of just knowing it. The reason I've made these presentations is because me personally, I experienced 2 burnouts. And during the recovery period of both burnouts, a lot of wisdom was presented to me through persons and also through books. And I said to myself, well, this wisdom, I already knew it, or at least the most part of it. I already knew this before I had the burnout. How come that just knowing the wisdom is not enough? And if we then go back up, if you are able to apply the wisdom, you can be happy when things are not perfect. And when you are happy when things are not perfect, you definitely can be happy when things are perfect, or when you do have influence on your circumstances. I have 3 presentations, of which this one is the first. And in this presentation, everyone head off, I want to focus on awareness. I want to make you guys aware of stuff which is in our head and which is mostly defined by evolution and which will not be gone in the next couple of million years. And all those stuff which is in your head, it was very, very useful when we were still not civilized, when we were still living in camps in the bush. All those things in our head were very useful. But nowadays, since we live in houses and there are shopping malls, those things are not as useful anymore. and they come with some nasty downsides, negative effects. Well, this second presentation, everyone's CTO, together with you guys, I want to neutralize those negative effects. They just are not handy anymore nowadays. The world around us has evolved, but our brains haven't just got to that point yet. So we want to neutralize those effects. The third and last presentation, everyone's CEO. Again, together with you guys, I want to show you those effects. You can use them. They're not all negative. How can you cultivate them, harvest them, and use them for your own growth? That's the last presentation. What is it not? That's very important to mention. I do not wish to destroy ideas which are already present in your head. I want these presentations to be an addition to the stuff that you already know, so I want to contradict as less as possible, which of course I will do my best, but I cannot guarantee. Somewhere here and there will be something which will contradict an idea which is already in your head, but I will do my best. Lastly again, this presentation is not about me. And if it is about me, well, then it is about all of us. During the 3 presentations, I want to keep the same structure. This is the structure in front of you. It presents to you 3 chapters of which will be the same over all 3 presentations. First, I want to start off with our brains. I want to explain how certain stuff in the brain works, how it is built, of course all based on evolution, that's the way it was formed, and I want to show you how certain stuff is built. Not everything, of course, because time is limited. The second chapter, reflection, that is about how we use the brain. So first chapter is how it works, the second chapter is how we use it. Of course, those things are related. That's not a surprise. The third and last chapter is obstacles. Obstacles, they are present in all of our lives and they present a barrier to our happiness. Obstacles, what can we do with them and how can we tackle them? That's the last chapter. But let's get started with the brain. First of all, short-term, long-term. We have in our brains a short-term satisfaction center. Not short-term memory center, no, short-term satisfaction center. It is called this, the Nucleus accumbens. Very, very fancy name. And it is part of our reward cycle and it gives off dopamine. When we stimulate it, it gives off dopamine. Well, you know, the name is a bit too hard, at least for me. So we have to use another name for this center. And neurologists, you know, when they run into each other in a bar, they call this center the NAC, N-A-C. That's, again, too difficult for us. From now on, we will call it Nakki. Nakki is our short-term satisfaction center. Then, what about our long-term satisfaction center? Well, it simply doesn't exist. So, if you were thinking like, oh my god, there is an empty jar in my head. Well, no, that's not true. I used it just as an example. There is no jar in your head. I just want to depict here that the long-term satisfaction center does not exist. And why do I use an empty jar? Well, you know that everything we tell ourselves like, we have to lose another 20 kilograms. We have to do some more sports. We have to eat some more vegetables. They all go into this empty jar and nothing happens. what else should we know about our brains? Well, I was looking on Google Images to find pictures of brains to put in this presentation. And I came across this like very big difference between the male and the female brain. So I'm going to show you the pictures, and together with you, I hope that we can all see how big the difference is. Look at that! Yes! The female brain is a lot smaller. It's just a lot smaller. And if you are doubting, this is the truth. This is the truth. Those pictures come from Google Images. Google is the truth. Google never lies. And at least to me, it explains a lot. Okay, second topic of the brain, the habits. We are animals of habit. And not just us. Other animals are also animals of habit. Our brains are programmed to learn habits and then repeat them like 1,000 times without thinking. That is very handy, of course. You can learn something and then you can do it without thinking about it, so that you can use your brain power to do something else. It is very useful. We all know the saying, old habits die hard. Well, that is not true. Old habits never die. Once a habit is learned, it cannot be deleted. It will never die. It will stay in our brain for eternity. And the story is not finished. This also counts for other stuff. Basically, everything in our head. Habits, memories, traumas, they are all there for eternity. At least, of course, until we die. They will not leave the brain. Once in the brain, it will not leave there. This is just a known fact, and you can best compare this with the engine of a car. If the engine of a car is broken, we have to turn off the engine, open engine, take the part out, replace the part with a good part, close engine, turn engine on. Well, turning the brains off just is impossible. We cannot turn our brains off. We cannot turn our brains off to replace a broken part. You can only turn your brain off once, of course, and well, that's it. Then you're finished. So our brains are one big plus machine, and nothing can be replaced. The good thing about this is though that we have a lot of capacity. The brain is very big in capacity. We have enough capacity to store 3 human lifetimes. 3 human lifetimes. So we have enough capacity to keep on learning and learning and learning new habits or new memories and new stuff. That's good. That's good. That's the upside. Together with these parts, or this what I mentioned here, there's another important thing. Our brains do not understand the word not. You cannot not do something. Best example is, everyone who's listening now, please do not think about a pink elephant. That's impossible. We all start thinking about the pink elephant, just because we do not understand not. Last topic, the habit cycle. Our habits are built up in a certain way in our brains, which I depicted here for you. We have emotions, thoughts, and behavior. They all influence each other and they all trigger each other. A certain emotion triggers a certain thought, and an emotion and a thought triggers a certain behavior. And of course it doesn't stop there. That behavior triggers another emotion and another thought, which triggers another emotion, another behavior, and it goes on and on and on. Our habits are built up in this way with an a very large chain of these cycles. So the one chain goes up into the next cycle and the next cycle and the next cycle. That's the way our habits are built. And they all influence each other. Then, what else have we learned? We have Nakki, our short-term satisfaction center. That one gives or pushes hard on emotions. It gives us certain emotions, of course, to make sure that we give him some sort of behavior. Most of the time, as you all know from experience, it is not really positive emotions. And positive or negative emotions, of course, they do not result in positive behavior. Or at least rarely. Very rarely. What else? We have also a center which is the stress center in our brains, and it's called the amygdala. Very fancy name, but again, it is just the stress center. The stress center, it amplifies Nakki. The more stress we have, and we don't like that feeling of stress, the more Nakki will come into play, because he supposedly knows how we can get rid of the feeling. So it will give some more negative emotions. And of course, stress also directly influences our emotions. First chapter is done. We can go to the second one, reflections. First topic, self-image. Well, what I want to tell you guys today is the way that we look at our own lives. In the old days being like, let's say, 50 to 100 years ago, our lives looked like this. You were born, you went to school, you did a job, you retired, and then you died. And if you went to the carpenter school, you became a carpenter, and then you were a retired carpenter, and you died a carpenter. That was very predictable. And of course, predictability is good. Okay, and by the way, let's go to church every Sunday, which is basically part also of that life. You know, there was not a lot of flexibility, but there was a lot of predictability. And predictability, of course, gives an ease of mind. But today, our lives are looking a bit different. Our lives nowadays look like this. And I hear you think, yes, our lives are at least double as long. Because look at the picture, it's double as long. But that's not true. I just had to make it longer, otherwise the letters wouldn't fit. So our lives are just the same length. So, okay, it was just to get all the letters and words in. Okay. So, what has changed? Today, we are born, we go to school, we do a job, we learn, we go to a job, we learn, we go to another job, we learn, then we retire, and then we still keep on learning, and eventually we learn how to die. Well, this is the new life. And I depicted here 3 jobs. It does not necessarily need to be another job. Also, in your current job, you need to keep on learning. If you did your job you're doing now for, let's say, at least 10 years, 10 years ago, your job looked a lot different. It changes. Everything changes. Change has become a natural part of our lives. So we have to keep on learning. It is very important. It is imperative that we keep on learning. But there are some stuff which, let's say, hold us back from learning. What is that? Firstly, thinking we know it all or thinking we should know it all. If you do your job for 10 years and someone asks you a question, well, you have to know the answer, right? You are the senior. You've been doing this job for at least 10 years. You have to know it all, right? Right? Well, of course, that's not really true, you know. Your job has changed and it keeps on changing, so you can never know it all. Even when you are a senior, you have to keep on learning. But anyway, that idea holds us back from learning. Secondly, if we learn, we feel some kind of weakness. That's normal, of course, because we step outside our comfort zone. And a step outside of our comfort zone, well, we step into an unknown world. And an unknown world gives us some fear and stress. That's the uncomfortable feeling of the weakness, let's say. And we don't like to feel weak. We just don't like that. So the foresight of the weak feeling, also that one, holds us back from learning. Thoughts. Thoughts, the most important chapter or topic. An average person has a whopping 40,000 thoughts a day. 40,000 thoughts. That is a lot. But it's normal. And of those 40,000, almost three quarter, 70% of those thoughts are negative. And that is normal, guys. That is completely normal. An average person has 40,000 thoughts, of which 70% are negative. How does this come? Well, evolution again. Our brains are constantly looking for threats. Good stuff. You cannot die from good stuff, so you do not need to look for good stuff. Bad stuff. You can die from bad stuff, so you need to have your attention focused on the bad stuff, because that's the way you will survive. This is completely normal. So if you say to yourself, well, I am kind of like depressed and I'm always thinking negative or negatively, well, no. The average person is depressed in that regard. So you are no different than any other person. And this is normal. What else about thoughts? Well, you have two kinds of thoughts. You have facts and you have opinions. A fact is a thing which is true. For example, the globe is round, the world is round. We have put people in a rocket, we've sent them to the moon, they took a picture, they came back, that thing is round. We cannot go round that fact. It is true. Secondly, we have opinions. And opinions are things that are. For example, round is pretty. Well, you might think, and I hear you thinking, what a strange definition about opinions. What do you mean, things that are? Shouldn't you have written there things that are false, or things that are false until they're proven, or things that we shouldn't trust, or that kind of stuff? Well, everything that I just mentioned are opinions about opinions. The only fact that we know about opinions is that they exist. They are. And I've made up all by myself. What else? Stress. Stress amplifies opinion forming. This is again also an evolutionary part. When we felt stress, back in the days, back in the bush, when we felt stress, we were in a life-threatening situation. In a life-threatening situation, you count on the right judgment of the situation. Our brains need to make right judgment in order to survive. So if you have more stress, you will have more judging, and judging, of course, results in more opinions. So if your stress levels increase, the amount of opinions in your brain also increase. And again, this is completely normal. Last topic, castigation. this is also an important one. It is kind of like a special series of thoughts. And those thoughts go like this. Why did I do this or that? Or why didn't I say this or that? Or why am I not smarted? And I'd better get started. Those things we constantly say to ourselves during the day. Every time we castigate ourselves. And where does this come from? Well, back in the days when we were kids, every time that we exhibited poor or negative behavior, someone, a parent or a teacher, they punished us. They punished us in order to increase the anxiety and the stress levels for that negative behavior to promote good behavior. So, and if they do that enough, and oh boy, they did that a lot with me. Oh my god. If they do that enough, it becomes a habit. This is a habit that we've learned from back in the day when we were kids. Back in the day, someone else punished us, and today, when we see negative behavior with ourselves, we punish ourselves. This is also a learned habit. Everyone does this. People with high and low self-esteem do this. Everyone does this. And of course, every castigation increases stress. That was the idea. If you punish yourself, the stress will increase, the anxiety will increase, you will fear the negative behavior, and the fear, of course, is stress. So the whole idea of castigation is to increase the stress. So, that was the second chapter. Now, up to the third, obstacles. Okay, let's start. Control. I've put here the big phrase. Control the things you can control. Of course, this is not new. We all know this. It is written in every, let's say, a management book or whatever. Control the things you can control. It is all over the place, but we still have trouble with it. But let's look at what we've learned so far and apply control to it. Firstly, we have our habit cycle. Emotions, thought, behavior. We know that Nakki and stress, they put a strong pressure on emotions. And that is not a positive way. So we will have negative emotions. Negative emotions result in negative thoughts. Negative thoughts and negative emotions together result in negative behavior. And what do we do when we see negative behavior? We spank ourselves in the mental way, so we castigate ourselves. The castigation results in increased stress levels, that was the idea, and an increase in negative thoughts. So you have more negative thoughts, more negative emotions, which will result in more negative behavior. And the circle is round, and it helps us going downward and downward and downward into more and more negative behavior. And what is this? This is an obstacle. Very simple. So, if you're thinking, wow, this presentation, whoa, you really thought this through? Well, thank you, because that is just the case. That is a fact, not an opinion. So, now, what we've learned so far, let's have a look at control. What parts of this cycle do we control? So, Nakki and stress, the nucleus accumbens and the amygdala are 250 million years old. That is very, very old. That is older than most dinosaurs. I mean, oh my god, that's old. Old means very well developed. Those centers are extremely well developed. Believe me, you do not control these brain centers. They are older than advanced language and a lot older than the ability to reason, the ability to think. These centers are a lot older. What else? Thoughts. Of course, castigation being a special kind of thoughts. If you are very lucky and if you work very hard, maybe 100, maybe 200, maybe 500 thoughts a day that you actually control, that you actually generated by yourself. All other 39,500 thoughts will come over you like a big giant wave all day long. You do not control all 40,000 thoughts. Never ever forget it. Those things, we have to exclude them. So, this looks kind of negative, right? So we're already crossed off half the things about the cycle. But on the positive side, we still have emotions and behavior that we have control over. So that's where we will focus. This will be the starting point of next presentation. We will see what we can do. Of course, for these still, let's say, people in doubt. This slide. The first time I experienced a burnout, I started the normal, let's say, trajectory. The normal trajectory being reading books about cognitive-based therapy, going to the psychologist, and going to the therapy. That therapy all was based on those things in red now. We will try to control the stress. We will try to change the thoughts and alter the thoughts. And if you go to a psychologist and he says, wow, the exercises are going well, let's do another exercise, a more difficult one. They are sick people. Psychologists are sick people with sick exercises. When you walk out of their office, you are like all sweating. Your brain feels like it has been run over like a bulldozer. And 3 days later, you're still having nightmares. That's how bad those exercises are. And after 10 months of that ordeal, the result was absolutely nothing. A complete relapse, even worse than before. It did not help. Everything which is in red here, absolutely, believe me, from experience, you do not control these. Obstacles. We were in the obstacles chapter. If we want to tackle obstacles, we need something. And I present to you, or in my opinion, what we need is a process. So, what do I mean with a process? First of all, a process is a course of thoughts and actions that you control for the full 100%. That's what we learned in the previous topic. Only full 100% control. Secondly, a process always ends with an action, never with a thought. So if you look down there, I've depicted it, thoughts, action, thoughts, action, thoughts, actions, and at the very end, action, never a thought. What else? We also need to know about the process breakdown process. What does this mean? If we start a process towards a certain goal, and during that process we find something which is out of our control, the big red arrow. If we find something which is out of our control, the rest of the process has become obsolete, useless. We cannot use it anymore. We need a new process. So we start a new process with things that are under our control. And we continue with that until we run up to the next thing which is out of our control. And then we go to the next process which is in our control to try to work towards our goal. As you see, the process gets smaller and smaller and smaller every time you break it down. This is, of course, necessary because you need to remain in your circle of control. Every time the circle just gets a bit smaller. And I know, okay, if you guys are thinking this is very theoretical and very abstract, well, I don't blame you guys. That is true. From next presentation on, we will see ample examples of this. I will give you enough examples. So if you think like, this is very abstract for now, that is okay. Next presentation, we will give you examples of this. For now, I will give you also one example, that is the soccer penalty. If you look at the World Championships and at the other championships, you see that those soccer penalties are missed. A lot of them are missed. Well, that comes because those players are focusing on the goal. But the goal, it's a metal frame, and the metal frame does not move, and you do not control it. And inside the metal frame is a goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper is another guy who jumps left or right or up or down, which you also don't control. But in front of you there's the ball, and the ball, and especially the best possible kick against the ball, that is what you control. So, about this process, I have for you a process hero. Thomas Edison. We all know the guy because he invented the light bulb. The light bulb. Do you know how many attempts he needed to make the light bulb work? A whopping 6,000 attempts. 6,000. That is a lot. Incredible. If you would have told him beforehand, before you're gonna develop this light bulb, it will take you 6,000 attempts, he will not have started. He just wouldn't have started. He was not crazy. But, 6,000 attempts. That's incredible. It goes way beyond discipline and perseverance or tenacity. It goes way beyond that. He needed, I think, in my opinion, some kind of a process, like I just depicted there, to make that light bulb work. And in his quote here in the picture, he says something like that. Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration or transpiration or sweat. It is all about sweating, sweating, and even more sweating. So, in this last topic about the obstacles, I want to present you here, let's say, the big ones, the big obstacles in our lives. And I want to start with people. People, they are often an obstacle in our path to happiness or even other paths. But I do not wish to say anything about that today. I want to start with a more positive note about people. A few weeks back, I was playing with my little nephew, 8 years old, at the table, and we were playing Lego. And we were building, and he was talking all about, I have this friend and he has that much Lego, and I have another friend and he has also a lot of Lego, and I have this much Lego. The Socrates in me, he rose and he asked the little guy, well, do you need all that Lego? And what did he answer? No, you don't need more Lego. You need a friend. So the Socrates in me, he was silenced. That was a very painful moment, which showed it clearly to me that you can even learn from an 8-year-old. Very painful. But he is right. We need friends. We need good friends. We need good social contact. Facebook doesn't count. Twitter doesn't count. Chat and email don't count. Face-to-face personal contact. That is what we need to be happy. It is one of the most basic prerequisites. Very important. We don't need a lot of friends. We need a few good friends. It is even that important that if you lose a good friend, you need 6 times your salary in order to compete with that, to make it right. 6 times your salary for one friend. That important are friends. So, I've presented to you the 3 chapters, and we've seen a lot. But there's a problem with what we've seen. I've told you a lot of stuff which is not there, or which we cannot do something about that. And we've also learned that we cannot not do something. So basically, everything you've seen so far is nice to know, but it's not something you can actually apply. That's why I've added this 4th chapter to this presentation. I want to give you something that you can do. So, and what you can do is based on this wisdom. Every day may not be good, but there is something good in every day. And we all want to be happy cows. So I present to you the Happy Cow Trio. What is this Happy Cow Trio? This Happy Cow Trio are 3 questions you will ask yourself every day. Firstly, what have you done so far that makes you happy and satisfied? I've written here happy and satisfied, not euphorically happy. That means that the answer to this question does not need to be I saved 1 million people its lives. It doesn't need to be, it can be a lot smaller than that. Look for something which you're basically just happy with, which is okay. Secondly, what has someone else done for you that makes you happy and satisfied? Again, happy and satisfied. What have you done so that it will happen again? What has someone else done for you? Thirdly and lastly, what else has happened that makes you happy and satisfied? It is imperative that you keep on looking for answers to these questions. You keep on looking, you go smaller and smaller and smaller into the most tiny of details of your day to look for answers to these questions. It's very important. These questions are the basis of everything which will follow. These are so important. But there is a problem with these questions. I'm asking you guys, ask these questions yourself every day to have a long-term effect. What have we learned about long-term? It all goes into the empty jar together with, I need to do some more sports or at least to lose some weight. It all goes into that empty jar. And there is no specific brain center which actively does something with that, which pushes us to do it. So, the next thing will inevitably happen. Inevitably, the following will happen. Sooner or later, and rather sooner than later. Your thoughts will tell you, what a stupid exercise. This will never help. It's way too simple. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to do this. And I really don't have any time for these questions. Read Nakki. This will happen. And that's why I called this slide First Glimpse towards the next presentation. What I want you guys to do if this happens, and it will happen. If this happens, take those thoughts, put them on a mental cloud, and watch the wind blow them past you. Because these are only 4 thoughts, only just 4. That means that another whooping 39,996 will follow today. These 4 thoughts will be flooded by other thoughts. Within the second, you will be thinking about something else. So what you are thinking now at this very instant is not important. It does not matter. So watch those thoughts. You cannot evade them. Watch those thoughts. Watch them flow by and ask the questions anyway. This kind of stuff is let's say, the first glimpse towards the next presentations. In the next presentation, everyone, CTO, we will see that everything what we've learned so far, so all the, let's say, negative effects of our brains and our way we use our brains, how we can neutralize those effects. That's what we're going to see in the next presentation. Based on what we've learned also about control. If you remember the picture, a lot of stuff we don't control. Thoughts, Nakki, stress, castigation, all that stuff we don't control. So we will focus on the things that we actually control. Next presentation. I have also, of course, as a last slide, given you the references of books where I've learned stuff from. Of course, I am way too stupid to make this all up, so I've read stuff. Well, here are 3 most important references for the presentation of today. Please, read those books. They are fair, or the websites or whatever, and they're also all very good. I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I hope that I will see you again next presentation. Everyone, CTO. Bye for now.